For weeks, this MiG-29 had been hunting Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea, flying low out of Kherson airfield in Crimea, chasing slow reconnaissance UAVs, then calling in coordinates for air defense batteries. Tonight, the jet sat inside a concrete revetment with its engines cold. The pilot was asleep in nearby quarters, thinking he'd wake up to another routine scramble. He wasn't going to wake up to anything, because 398 kilometers away, a weapon was already in the air to make sure that MiG never flew again. Quiet enough that a soldier standing 500 meters from the launch point would hear nothing but wind. And the Russians didn't know it was coming. At 7:15, a pneumatic catapult hurled a UJ-26 Beaver drone off a launch rail west of Kherson. The rear-mounted propeller caught air instantly. The drone climbed to roughly 60 meters, leveled off, and slipped into cruise. Small, light, and almost silent. 3 Ukrainian special operations soldiers had less than 2 minutes to disappear. They folded the launch rail in 12 seconds, threw thermal blankets into the truck bed, and rolled out along a dirt track that ran parallel to an irrigation channel. The Beaver was already 2 kilometers downrange, climbing toward its planned cruise altitude. Kherson airfield, 398 kilometers southeast. Here's the uncomfortable truth of long-range drone warfare. The drone isn't the fragile part. The humans are. The Russians were hunting before the Beaver had even settled into cruise. 14 miles east, a Pole 21 electronic warfare tower registered an anomaly the moment the Beaver powered on. Pole 21 blankets corridors with receivers tuned to detect satellite navigation activity, and the Beaver's encrypted GPS handshake, just a frequency-hopping burst in the L-band lasting milliseconds, was enough to spike the noise floor. A duty officer with Rubicon, Russia's dedicated drone hunting unit, flagged it immediately. Possible long-range UAV launch in progress. General area, the Kherson sector. Within minutes, a Russian Orlan-30 surveillance drone launched near the suspected origin point. Its thermal camera began scanning for what the Beaver itself was designed to avoid, the heat signature of a vehicle that couldn't have gone far. Rubicon's logic is cold and simple. Shooting down one drone doesn't matter if another launches tomorrow. But trained crews, the kind that can do RF discipline, autonomous nav management, and terminal guidance under pressure, take months to build. Rubicon doesn't chase the drone first. It chases the people who launched it. So while the Beaver climbed through 400 meters, Rubicon dispatched 2 FPV hunter teams into the sector. These aren't cinematic drones, they're brutal tools. Under a kilogram, around 120 kilometers per hour, carrying fragmentation charges meant to rip through a vehicle engine block. The advantage is numbers. One team carries 6 to 8 FPVs, enough to saturate a search sector and force mistakes. Russian doctrine assumes drone operators will choose speed over concealment after launch. Run the paved road, take the dirt track, get away fast. The Ukrainians did neither. They parked inside a collapsed barn, killed the engine, and draped thermal blankets over the hood. Then they did the hardest thing in modern war. They stayed still. For 8 minutes, they sat in absolute silence while the Orlan searched overhead. On the Orlan's thermal feed, a ghost image flickered. Compressed grass, fading heat where tires had sat. The operator vectored toward the anomaly. An FPV hunter passed 400 meters away. The Ukrainians didn't move. The Beaver, meanwhile, was already 50 kilometers downrange, now climbing toward cruise altitude around 800 meters. And then it did something that feels insane to anyone who thinks drones are remote-controlled. It went completely quiet. No uplink, no telemetry, no emissions. The operators couldn't see it, they couldn't correct it. They had to trust the navigation system to carry it into Crimean airspace while they focused on staying alive. At 7:31, the Orlan passed directly over the barn. The thermal camera read the structure as ambient temperature. No vehicle, no personnel, no target. Rubicon logged the search as inconclusive, and the Beaver kept going. At 7:50, the Beaver crossed the Dnipro River and flew southeast, over open steppe, with no terrain masking, no cloud cover, and radar coverage extending for hundreds of kilometers. And yet, Russian air defense saw almost nothing. That's the part people underestimate. The Beaver's composite skin doesn't reflect radar energy cleanly back to the receiver. It absorbs and scatters it. At the wrong angles, grazing angles from below, the return drops to near zero. Even when a radar could theoretically detect a tiny cross-section target, it needed perfect geometry. The Beaver's route was built to avoid perfect geometry. It flew the midcourse phase on inertial navigation, gyros and accelerometers tracking every movement, dead reckoning position based on where it started and how it moved since. The system drifts over time without GPS correction, but across a long flight, the error can remain within about a kilometer, close enough for a terminal phase where a human can take the last corrections. But the Russians don't need to see it continuously. They just need 2 bad seconds. At 7:56, a Crimean early warning radar got a fleeting paint. At 8:04, a mobile S-300 acquisition radar caught another 2-second glimpse. Neither produced a fire control solution, but together they were enough for Rubicon's analysts to run reverse vector reconstruction, bearing, altitude, time, then project a cone backward toward the most likely origin area. That cone narrowed. Orlans launched again. FPV teams repositioned toward bridges and canal crossings. Somewhere inside that corridor, the Ukrainian team had already moved on, quietly rolling south toward a safe house, engine cool enough to reduce thermal signature, staying out of predictable routes. Rubicon's net tightened anyway. Then at 8:15, the Beaver's flight computer registered a GPS anomaly. Satellite count dropped, then flickered. Navigation accuracy degraded into an unstable error circle that jumped erratically. Classic jamming. Russian EW had found the corridor. Truck-mounted jammers positioned along likely UAV approach routes poured noise into the GPS L1/L2 bands, creating overlapping cones of interference. The goal wasn't necessarily to shoot the drone down, it was to create pressure, to force operators to break radio silence and transmit corrections, which gives Rubicon exactly what it wants. The Beaver switched to inertial-only mode. Drift began accumulating, meters per minute, compounding with every second. That drift was still recoverable if the operators could re-establish contact during terminal phase and correct the final approach. But they could only do that once, because the moment they transmitted, Rubicon would hear them. At 9:14, the Beaver crossed into Crimean airspace, roughly 100 kilometers from Kherson, and activated its optical guidance camera. For the first time in 2 hours, the operators could see what the drone saw. A grainy, compressed feed with noticeable latency, but enough to make out runway lines and revetments. The MiG-29 was exactly where intelligence said it would be, parked in a hardened shelter with its nose visible beyond the blast walls. The operator began micro-corrections, anticipating inputs because latency made every command arrive a heartbeat late. The MiG grew in the frame, and Rubicon detected the uplink almost instantly. Even a directional antenna leaks energy through side lobes, stray RF that spills beyond the main beam. Along the Crimean coast, passive receiver stations are calibrated to detect exactly that signature. Within seconds, Rubicon had bearings. Within about 10 seconds, they had a triangulated area, good enough to shoot. They fired everything: FPV drones along the bearing, a loitering munition toward likely vehicle routes, artillery requests to the nearest battery. The Ukrainians had no idea any of it was inbound. They were locked on the camera feed, watching the MiG fill the frame, trying to fix the drift that had accumulated under jamming. At 9:20, an artillery shell landed about 2 kilometers behind their safe house. The relay signal held, missed, but close. More rounds followed. Then the security element reported the next problem: Russian FPVs inbound from the north. On the screen, the operator saw the consequence of jamming drift. The Beaver was about 340 meters left of the ideal aim line. At this heading, it would miss the revetment and slam into empty taxiway. He needed one correction, just one. A 3-degree heading adjustment that took less than 2 seconds to transmit. He sent it. The MiG-29 snapped back towards center frame. The Beaver began its terminal dive. And right then, Rubicon's FPV hunters hit the relay source. Because Rubicon had done what it always does. It didn't assume the relay was equipment. It assumed the relay was the crew. The first FPV struck the antenna housing dead center. The charge detonated, shredding the transmitter array and collapsing roof section onto the equipment. 2 more impacts followed, ensuring nothing inside survived. Artillery continued falling onto the grid for another minute, turning the structure into dust. Rubicon logged it as a clean kill. Transmission source destroyed, operators neutralized, threat ended. That assumption cost them the jet. Because the Ukrainian team wasn't there. They had been positioned separately, no antenna, no transmitter, no RF signature. Precisely because Rubicon always attacks the transmission source. The relay was a deliberate sacrifice. The final correction had already uploaded, and the Beaver's flight computer held the updated heading locked in memory. The drone didn't need guidance anymore. At 9:21:34, the Beaver hit the MiG-29. A shape-charged warhead detonated on impact. The pressure wave tore through aluminum skin and internal structure. Fuel sprayed across the revetment and ignited almost instantly, throwing a fireball high above the shelter walls. Secondary pops followed as onboard systems and stored munitions cooked off. When the flames settled, the Hunter MiG was a blackened skeleton. Melted wiring, twisted spars, and a cratered pad where it had been ready to launch again. And out in the Kherson countryside, 3 Ukrainian operators were still alive. Because the one thing Rubicon trusted most, the transmission source, had been bait. This strike wasn't just about a drone reaching a parked jet. It was about the duel behind the drone, the hunt for the humans, the jamming meant to force a mistake, and the race between terminal guidance and enemy direction finding. Rubicon did almost everything right. Detected the launch signature, hunted the crews, triangulated the uplink, and hit the relay hard. But the last 90 seconds weren't about who saw whom. They were about who could land one final correction before the lights went out. Bye for now.